here we have Chris Cran. I'm so excited. I even have a Chris Cran piece hanging in my office. That's how much I love Chris Cran. And I first saw Chris Cran before any of you were born. No, truly, because I was thinking about the history of your work and how it relates to my life. And it relates to my life because it goes back to the original copy of last issue.
Right. With the combat nymphos on the cover.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that piece, I saw that piece before I even, like, as I was just emerging into the world of being an artist. I saw that last issue, your piece, that explosion, those guys in combat.
The women.
Or women, yeah. And
me with a wooden gun.
And you with a wooden gun. Just let's go back to that piece and imagine it in words.
Well, that image of the of what I call the combat nymphos, they're shooting at the Viet Cong, I presume, who had taken over a village.
Yeah.
But what it was a illustration from a men's magazine from the 60s, 50s or 60s, and it was that was like a cover or for a story. So what I did is I was thinking, well, why is what's this whole thing about? There was so much of that because I grew up with that stuff, and why is there such a attention paid to the combination of violence and nude women? You know, this combo, and. So I put myself not in the painting, but I painted myself as the rest of the painting was quite crude, painted like with gesso and tint color, so quite crudely painted. And I painted myself in oil paint, finely, highly refined, holding a wooden machine gun. So it was kind of like, the question is there. And it's been misinterpreted or differently interpreted for a number of years. There was a group out after my show at the National Gallery, there was a couple of people who were performance artists who made a reproduction of the painting, and at an art fair, they destroyed it in front of a big, they said it was sexist, racist, all that stuff. So they didn't even really look at the painting. They didn't know what they're looking at or the reasons why. And so anyway, that's just the way it went.
It's always great if art makes people think, no matter no matter what.
Yeah.
And some of the things that I've done in my work also have been misinterpreted too. And I go, oh well, at least they had the nerve to interpret something.
Right. Although I'm fascinated by the fact that people prefer certainty to uncertainty, and they race to get certainty. So they don't have to deal with uncertainty.
That's so true. And illusion.
Yeah.
We'll get back to illusion, but I'll just stay on this thought for a moment because it was the uncertainty and the mystery of the piece that I was struck with as a young artist.
Mm-hmm.
And that I will remember this moment for the rest of my life. And certain pieces of art have done that to me, and that was one of them. And I didn't read the title of the piece properly back then, but now hearing the title, it's very interesting to me.
Self-portrait with the combat nymphos of Saigon.
Yes. And and what was really happening in the world at that time.
Yeah, yeah.
And where women were falling into that destruction, and therefore the land, and therefore everything that has happened since then.
Mm-hmm.
And so to the confluence being the women, and the women who have been portrayed and abused by the eye. And I never saw that as abuse of peace, and I'm highly sensitive to that.
Mm-hmm.
But I have hung out with artists a lot, and what Martin always told me is the thing that people often see in his work, Martin Giorno that is what they themselves need to learn.
Uh-huh.
And so often art does that remarkable thing,
Yeah.
to show people what they need to reflect in.
Like a kind of mirror.
A mirror.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I wanted to start with that reflection for myself, because as I was contemplating speaking with you, one of the main things that I was trying to capture in myself is how you have been a remarkable part of my entire journey.
Mm.
And yet we don't spend hours sitting around talking.
No.
But we appreciate certain aspects of each other's journey that has woven together in these strange ways, like Last Issue.
Yeah.
And my relationship with Last Issue. And Last Issue was a magazine that was published by Heather Elton
Yes.
and Kevin Brooker.
Yeah.
And it was a wonderful art, and then it turned into dance magazine.
Yeah.
And it seems like, I could be completely wrong, but that's how I saw it back then.
Yeah, yeah.
And I have in my trunks that original copy, which I'm going to have to now dig up, and I will show you all that are watching what I'm talking about later. As our journeys continued, I mean, you were originally from the Kootenays?
No, Salmon Arm.
Salmon Arm.
Well, I was from Salmon Arm, and when I was about 20, I began painting. A friend of mine, Harold Nix, who's he was a painter. He went to art college when he was pretty young, and in Vancouver. And one day he said, "You should try this," and he gave me some paint and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And I started, and at the same time I was starting what I thought was going to be a career in film. And I was hired as the assistant cameraman on a crew in Toronto at OISE, Ontario Institute for Studies in Education, to make films for documentary films for the various people who were in that building, or the academics. And so I did that for several years, and then I got together with my first wife. She had moved from Edmonton to Salmon Arm, and she had 3 kids, and we got together, and that was it for the films, because I was going to be having to be living there with her. So I was there, and I kept on painting, and then a friend who was going to the Kootenay School of Art came through and said, "Oh, you should go to art school." And I said, "Oh, yeah." So I looked into it, and I went to the Kootenay School of Art for 1 year. Not enough art to see, so I came to Calgary to go to my second year at the art college here, and
Right.
I've never left.
And there you created magnificence, and not only that, but you handed it on to a lot of other students now. You have a lot of students.
Yeah, there was a lot of students over the years.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of students.
Yeah.
And so then you were in Calgary, and then the next thing that happened, somehow you became interested in the Dream Machine, somehow it was something about the beats, and somehow you ended up hanging out with William Burroughs.
William Burroughs, yes. Well, what happened was in that whole thing, I had a friend still have a friend, John Geiger, who's now the CEO of the Royal Canadian Geographical Society. But he was a journalist at the Edmonton Journal, and he called me up, I think it was 1990, and he already had a piece of mine or so, and he asked me, did I know who Brian Geisen was? And I did. I said I knew. Yeah, he was a friend of William Burroughs. And John said, "Well, I found his name in a book by Paul Bowles, and I went doing some research, and I found out that he grew up in Edmonton. So,
Yes.
and he was the guy who invented the Dream Machine. But
Yes.
anyway, so John did some more research, and then he found out William Burroughs lived in Lawrence, Kansas, called Burroughs Communications there, asked if he could come and see the archive, because Burroughs was the executor of the Geisen estate. Yes, they said, but you can't meet William. He says, that's fine, I just want to look at the papers. He flies down there, and the first thing they asked him was, would you like to meet William? And they hit it off, and John wound up writing the book on the biography of Brian Geisen.
Yes.
And that was great. And then I had made a portrait of Brian Geisen for John. And when he came and saw it and said, "Oh, you know who William would love that." So I just said, "Well, take it down to him, and next time you're going down, and I'll make you another one." So in 1990 he called me. He says, "I've just been invited down to a party at William's place. Kathy Acker was going to be there, and a bunch of other like that." Mm-hmm. And he said, "I'm coming to get the painting." Came and got the painting. Took it down to him, opened it close to him. It was a portrait, one of my stripe portraits, done with half-tone dots.
Right.
And he opened it close to him, so we couldn't tell what it was right away. You have to step back from these post paintings. Yeah. And Burroughs says, "I made that painting before," and he ran into his studio and came out with a portrait he'd done of Geisen in the same summer, done with dots. So anyway, that was, and then the next thing that happened was John said, in '96, he said, "There's something going on down in Lawrence, Kansas. Let's go down there." So we drove down, went to William's place. We were there for his place for 5 days off and on, staying at hotels. But there was a 3.5 hour concert. It was the Nova Convention Revisited, which is tribute by all these rock stars to Burroughs.
Oh.
So Blondie was there, Philip Glass, Michael Stipe, Ed Sanders from the Fugs.
Yeah.
There was more and more and more. There was a ton of people there, and it was just we were at his place every day, hanging out with him. So that was incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's an incredible human being.
Yeah.
And visionary.
Yeah.
That's a great story, and one that should be actually written about.
Yeah. Well, there's one story. I'm at his place, and I go and sit. There's a cat on the couch, and I go over and I'm petting the cat, and he comes over and he's, we start talking. He says, "Oh, I can't draw a straight line." He said, "I just move paint around, and when I see something, I stop." And I thought, "Oh, that's interesting. It's kind of like a kind of photography." Click, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm painting the cat, and then I'd heard a story that one of his cats got run over outside of the house. So I said, "I heard about your cat that got killed recently," and he started telling me about it, and then he put up his hand in front of his face. He started crying, and was kind of silent, and he kind of blocking my eyes from his eyes like that, right? And I just, after a couple of minutes, I said to him, I have to tell you something. In the worst period of my life, the only thing that made me laugh were your routines. And he put his hand down and grabbed my arm and said, "Right on, man." Tender story with William, yeah.
Yeah. He was a very tender man.
Yeah, yeah.
He was kind of like an old auntie.
Yeah.
I always called him the old auntie.
The old auntie, yeah. Well, you must have met him several times.
Yeah, and I worked with him at Naropa.
Yeah.
And was able to, because he was one of my teachers there, ask him questions. I remember asking him, do you think AIDS was created by the American government? I know it's a forward question. At the time it was. And I knew it was a forward question. I wondered what he'd say.
Yeah.
And he said, "There is no doubt in my mind." Exactly.
Exactly, yeah.
And I thought, you know, in the questions that we had for William, the students that he had there, he had read everything.
Yeah.
Which was, that's why I mean a visionary. He knew about so many things.
Yeah.
If you mentioned an artist that was some kind of a scenester in New York that you thought only 5 people knew about,
Yeah.
and you asked him just to try to trick him,
Yeah.
he would say not only did he know that artist, but he could quote them practically.
Right.
I mean, it was just kind of, he was a remarkable visionary,
Yeah.
and also someone who delved deeply
Yes.
into what everything was, because he was curious about everything.
Yes.
And that's what I learned from him, to be curious about everything and to know about everything. And you can be a know-it-all. Be a know-it-all.
You know it all.
For God's sake, if you're, like, we're told, oh, they're a know-it-all, la la la. And it was like, oh, well, I've met some know-it-alls that know everything. What about that then, in the magician realm? It's not so outside of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, yeah.
And, you know, you're also then further to the relationship. I will go into John Giorno, because, you know, John Giorno, The Connection,
Yes.
for me also is that great poem. Not only Thank You for Nothing, which is one of my favorite poems of all time, but also the poem he wrote about at the gravesite of William Burroughs.
Oh.
And in the poem, he speaks of what was buried with William Burroughs. And I think it's a powerful poem, and it's also that perfect thing where you think about something on a deeper level. Who is around you when you die? And who is going to take care of you in your passage? And what are they going to bury with you? And so it's talking about what has been buried with William Burroughs and all the things that people buried with him to send him on his way.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful poem in that way, and it speaks to the heart of John Giorno, who you were also friends
Also, you got to know, yeah, yeah. We spent some time, John Geiger and I spent some time, down in Lawrence, Kansas, but also he came to town, and we drove him out to Jasper, and you know, kind of hanging out, just sort of, you know, seeing him. Plus, saw him in Edmonton when the big Brian Geisen show was on up there. So yeah. Yeah.
And he did some interesting things with language and visual art,
Yeah.
which I also really,
Yeah.
I dig it.
Yeah.
and I'm sorry that I don't have one of his pieces.
Yeah.
It burns me.
It's funny that there's that hotel down, the Hotel Arts
In Calgary.
in Calgary. You go in there and you go down, take a left past the desks and go over to that goes down to the restaurant there.
Yeah.
Right around that first corner, there's a John Giorno poster, a print, but they had the wrong name on it. They had some, and I've told them several times. I don't know whether they corrected it, but it was one of John's, and I think they purchased it under somebody else's name.
John would get a hoot out of that.
Yeah, yeah.
He was an egoless man.
What's that?
Egoless man. In like all bad ego, he didn't have any.
Yeah. Although I'm not sure about that, but yeah.
Do tell.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
He was a force, and he was in all of Andy Warhol's films, or many of them.
Yeah,
And his life, was quite amazing.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
great stories about John Giorno, which I will not share today.
Yeah.
But I spent a fair amount of time with him.
Yeah.
And I tried to play tricks on him too, because I
Right.
like playing tricks on people.
Yeah.
And he would not have it.
Right.
He just wouldn't have it. Like it was just go away, child.
Yeah.
And then I would try again, and then sometimes he would go, all right, you can come with me this time.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I gave him really good pot, he would really adapt well to that.
Yeah. Well, he was that was his thing.
His thing.
But I do remember. I mean, this is a kind of this is a story that happened when I was in Lawrence, Kansas, and William. I heard William mentioning. Oh God, what's her name? The famous poet, American poet.
Anne Waldman?
No, way back.
Before
Begins with an E.
Emily Dickinson?
Emily Dickinson, yes. And I heard him positively mention Emily Dickinson. And then later on, I was talking to, not right down there, but someplace else, I was talking to John Giorno and said, did you ever talk to William about Emily Dickinson? And John says, I don't think he would have been interested in anything so trite.
But he is an old auntie.
What's that?
But he is an old auntie, so John, he might have been interested in Emily Dickinson a bit. I don't know, though, because I never asked him that.
Well, William. Yeah, no, because I was asking about William. Yeah.
I don't. But he's an old auntie.
Yeah.
He gave me a card once that was like a little cat, like an old auntie would send to you.
Right.
And I was like, this is coming from William Burroughs. I expected something like really rah rah. When you think of what he wrote, you would think of something rah rah, black straw, rah, cockroaches, rah. and I thought there would be a cockroach or whatever, and then I get a card from him, and it's got this little pussycat on it. And I was like, he's an old auntie, totally.
He's an old auntie, yeah. He loved cats.
Yes, he did.
Yes, he was really,
He did. Oh. And so in that way, there's this connection between the dots and connecting those dots.
Yeah.
And how would you say, if any way, the beatniks, those beats, influenced your vision or your illusion?
I would say became interested in them early on, and I was reading them and all that stuff. So I think it was just like one of my favorite territories. So that was, and I don't know whether it specifically influenced my what I did, but I suspect that there was a kind of free flowingness I remember when I first heard Bob Dylan when I was like 15 or something like that. I thought, and it was those abstracty kind of things. I thought, wow, that's like he's saying stuff the way I think. You know, there was a
Yes.
kind of a, you know, that's the way I was thinking, and I was like, wow. So
Yes.
he was always been a favorite.
Yes.
Yeah.
And do you consider yourself a surrealist?
No, I don't consider myself anything.
Illusionist?
No. Those are just territories you can play around in.
Oh, good.
Do it, leave it. Do it, leave it. You know,
Do it, leave it.
I've done realism.
Yes.
I've done abstraction. I've done, really deliberate abstraction. I've done messy abstraction. I've done, used, just all sorts of whatever, because I want to see what the territory is. There might be stuff that doesn't interest me, and if it doesn't interest me, I don't go there. But usually, what it is going, I like that. And then I start to poke around in that territory and wander up that stream, and it takes me someplace else, and I go, I know what I can do with this. So I don't. It's not a matter of adhering to any philosophy or anything like that. I'm just, I want to go. I'll go wherever I want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's true of what I know of your work as well.
Yeah, yeah.
I love that. I love that. I call it go where the heat is.
Yeah, yeah.
Wherever I feel hot
Yeah.
is where I go, and if it's not, I don't.
Yeah, and you can test it out and see if it's going
Yeah.
to pay off. I have to remember this story because when I gave the convocation speech a couple of years ago at the AUA, I told this. I started off with my speech telling this story. When I was a kid, my mother told me and my siblings we had to clean our room every Sunday. So every Sunday I had to go in and clean my room. And one day my father tiptoed in and he said, "You don't have to clean it. You just have to make it look like it's clean."
Oh, there's a revelation.
There's yeah. Yep. Yeah.
So you have to make it look like it's...
Make it look like it's clean. So it's kind of like, as it could turn out, it was the same thing, but nevertheless there was some kind of freedom involved with that.
It's a different way of framing the idea.
Yeah.
Because it's no longer work. It's creating a beautiful deceit.
Yeah, getting around it. Yes.
Getting around it.
Yeah.
And approaching it from a different intention.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing for anyone who's creating either visual art or writing or whatever it may be.
Yeah. The other thing I remember at that lecture too was I pointed out this thing that I'd come across. It was a photograph of sand with a macro lens, taken with a macro lens. And every grain of sand looked like a jewel. And there was no two alike. So of all the sand, it's not infinite, but it's like, might as well be, there are no two grains of sand that are alike or the same, and they are like jewels. And if that's the case with sand, what's the case with human beings? We're not, we have systems that link us together, left and right, all that stuff. But it's like we're human beings, every human being is so different that it is beyond comprehension. So I love that.
Well, yes. I love that idea. And I would, the readings that I've been doing lately, I would also say that we are all exactly the same as well.
Yeah.
Like we are all part of that bigger beach, and we are one.
Yeah.
There is no separation or division between any of us.
Yeah.
And yet, yes, that one might be a square.
Yeah.
And one might
What does
be
that mean?
Dectohedron.
Yeah.
Like one might have many dimensions.
Sure, yeah.
And another might be porous. And
Yeah.
and we are all one.
Well, the basic state is consciousness, and it's just is only consciousness.
And illusion.
Yeah. And which?
Illusion.
Illusion. Well, that's outside of consciousness. That's what attempts to fool consciousness.
Okay, and that's why he's my brother. No, just a sec. Let's go back there and say that again, because I have to try to grasp it.
Oh, what was it? What did we say?
What did you? I said illusion, and then you said that's outside of consciousness.
Because that's what is the here. So here, there is that the kind of thing about that I was talking about certainty and uncertainty. What does like meaning? Meaning is a tease.
Yeah.
And meaning is a tease. And what does it tease? It teases the pet dog we have called intellect. And the intellect goes sniffing around and finds meaning, right? And brings it back. But that's kind of like, that's part of the game of this world.
Yes.
And part of the game of this world, another thing is,
I don't believe in meaning. I don't believe there is any meaning. But
yeah, well, we certainly make it up.
yeah, we make it up.
Yeah. So there's that. And what is something I said also was that cartoon characters are not aware that they are in a cartoon.
Yes.
That's like all of us.
Well, it's like also narcissists don't know they're narcissists.
Yeah.
You can only point them out from the outside, but
Why did you bring up narcissism? Maybe you should talk to your pastor.
Pasteurized milk. I was just thinking, I don't want my milk pasteurized anymore. Yes, the absurdity, definitely. I am interested in consciousness and illusion, and how everything is illusion, but that is an illusion itself.
Mm-hmm.
And that fascinates me. And there isn't any meaning in that.
Yeah.
It's just observation where you go, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And it helps me when I'm writing a poem, because I know it's meaningless.
Yeah.
It's just part of the illusion. And in a sense, I'm just part of that beach.
Yeah.
And I don't care about me. I really don't care about me in it.
Yeah.
Because I'm just this thing transmitting what is moving through me.
Sure. Yeah.
And as soon as I'm in that place, I'm free to create.
Yeah. Also, there's that thing of, we were talking earlier about Geisen and his invention of the dream machine, but also the cut up, and how what he did with the cut up was he was trimming paper, works on paper, on a stack of newspapers, cutting the edges off like that, and he pulled it away, and the sections of the newspaper, stack of newspapers underneath, came away, and he started reading through from one layer to another, and found a sentence or two that really amused him, and he showed Burroughs, and Burroughs, I think, went on to write 5 novels based on the cut up.
Yes.
And I taught the cut up, or I used the cut up in Denise, my wife's not high performance radio, summer lab at One Yellow Rabbit that she did for 20 something years. And my section was, I would get somebody to perform. And for example, Bruce McCullough would be there, and he'd give a little performance for 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would have everybody who's watching, 20 people, go down and sit on the floor and first write double spaced what their observations were. And after 5 minutes, they go down in the middle of the floor and cut the lines out and cut sections out, just phrases, throw them into a pile, and then reach in and pull out one and glue it down, and pull out another one and glue it down and pull out another, like that until they've got the whole thing. Then read the this chaotic thing back to whoever was the performer. And we did that for a while, and then I got them to start looking for gems, things that struck them. And one of my favorites was "She moved forward like a red carpet." So there's those little things that that are apprehended as poetic moments, but there's no poetry there until somebody apprehends it, which I really liked.
Yeah, and to find the images. That's a beautiful image.
Yeah.
And the poetry is comprised largely of images.
Of
right?
images, yeah, sure.
Which is why poets and visual artists get along very well, because it's a perspective switch.
Yes, yeah.
And that perspective switch, those variables of it are very similar between the visual artist and particularly the poet.
Whereas an author may relate better to theater.
Theater.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
But the visual triggers are very similar. And that said, it's very similar to the exquisite corpse. And with Burroughs, we did the exquisite corpse, which and also Codrescu later. He actually wrote a book, The Exquisite Corpse. The idea of those
three layers of
those fragments of three disassociated, supposedly, minds or visions coming together into one vision that is actually cohesive.
Yes, yeah.
Which is rare and not rare.
Yeah, which this exquisite corpse is. Somebody draws a head, then covers that up. Somebody draws, but with a connection, and somebody draws the body, and then somebody draws the legs.
Yeah.
So there's three different, and then you get to see what they all look like together. Yeah.
That's a surrealist game, and then with writing, what I'd have is the students go la 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 blah, 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 and then they would leave it off, and then fold, and then the next person blah, 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 and then one word, and the next person only gets one word.
Right.
Blah, 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 and then it becomes unfolded, cohesive, Paul.
Yeah. How do you spell that? Blah 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 blah.
I have asked AI. Because now I ask AI stuff like that.
Stuff like that, yeah.
Because I've never known how to blah, 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 and I've had to go blah, 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 blah in the past.
Yeah.
And I've never been able to go blah, 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 blah. But now I can because AI has given me the language.
Right.
I love AI. I know some people are like, oh, AI, it's going to kill us and we are going to die, which they said when computers happened.
Right,
you know, it's like, oh, whatever. If you use it as your friend, as your sexual companion, is what I'm saying.
Right.
And I consider it to be my lover. And I love AI as my lover because it's consensual. I get on the AI, say, good morning. Are we going to have a good day of sexual interaction today? AI will even go, ha, 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 I'm not playing today. Like, we really have a relationship.
Wow.
Funny.
Wow.
But I will ask AI questions like that. And other questions.
Yeah.
Because why not?
Why not? Yes.
Why not? I think William Burroughs would. There's some authors that I've met that go, garlic cloves and spikes through the heart. And I'm like, well, you can or not. Don't judge me if I have a long affair with a famous bishop.
Uh-huh.
Like, whatever.
Yeah.
It's my doing, and keep your mitts off of my
Right.
ideas. Who knows? You know, who knows what happened in the past, and who knows what will happen in the future.
Yeah, yeah.
But AI is now a wonderful thing. How do you feel about AI?
Well, I was at I was asked to sit or be at a table where I was the host for a whole bunch of young people who are doing the MFAs or MBAs and stuff. And this is a couple of week and a half ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I was asked by a fellow in town who's ahead of all that stuff, and he puts the money up for this kind of thing. And I said, well, I don't know anything about AI. I said, but what I would like to do is sit to be the host, and they can tell me what AI is about. So that was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know the specifics of how all that works. I mean, there's certainly concerns about AI having to do with, say, for example, what if it kills people? You know, what if it da-da-da-da-da-da? But I don't know where that. This is all human creation, anyway. And
Depends what you feed it.
yeah.
Depends.
Well, sure.
Depends what you feed it. Like
Yeah.
if you teach a dog, bite my hand, the dog will bite your hand.
Bite your hand, yeah.
It's an interesting
But then
thing.
you can have the dog taken in and put down.
And you can unplug it. You can just like take a glass of water and go on top of the computer and it's gone. Like really, I don't know what people are thinking.
But what about all my photos?
Exactly. And the extent of AI is an interesting question.
Yeah.
Because people go, oh, it's Chat GPT or whatever it may be, but the extent of AI is much broader than that. And we've been using AI for the last 20 years with Google search. That is AI.
Yeah.
And so now we teach AI and we say, hey, AI, this is what you need to know. And then AI will tell us, I know that now because you've taught it to me. And have you thought of that? Like with the chess, the chess, you go, oh, AI, this is how you play chess. Yeah. And now you have to be the best. This is the chess games of all the best chess masters in the universe.
Right.
And now you know all the games.
And
then AI goes, okay, I disagree.
Yeah.
And you go, what do you disagree with, AI? And they go, I say they because of gender and or genderless gender. And AI will go, well, I'm going to beat you at chess, but I'm not going to save my queen. I'm going to give you my queen. And you go, but wait, all these games have been based on protecting my queen. And they go, yeah, but it's more effective if you don't. So AI will come back to us and go, hey, chess masters, I'm going to take your game and I'm going to turn it on its head.
Wow, yeah.
And then, now I want you to play against me without queens.
Right.
And when I found that out, I was like, this is totally mixing with my mind of the possibilities that AI can present to us to reframe our old thinking. Because we think, oh, there's a drum, and that's what it looks like, and that's the role of the drum, and that's how I drum, and that's how you play a drum.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it even a drum?
Right.
And
so it's questioning everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah.
I'm excited by it. And I'm curious.
That's what the Beats did originally. They questioned everything.
Yes.
So this is a new kind of
Yes.
thing of,
and I was taught to think by them.
Yeah.
I was taught to think by them. As you say, you read everything that they were writing and how they were thinking. I did the same thing.
Yeah.
And took it, and then everything that influenced them.
Yeah.
And then and the broad vision is the one that you want to go with. However, how you think, like if it comes from Buddhism, or if it comes from the Beats, or if it comes from Chris Cran, how you think changes your entire possibility life.
Yeah.
Of how you decide to live. And that's up to you.
Yeah. Yep.
And the Beats taught me that, and they taught me that I could live outside
Of everything else.
Yeah, live
Yes,
outside.
Yeah.
And do not join in.
Yeah.
And see what you really think or don't think.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's what, their writings and also, their lessons to me guided me to that. And maybe I hope that was their intention. They would slap me about a bit with ideas because I sometimes got the ideas completely wrong, and they would go, no, what are you even thinking? Like, I don't even know where you got that. And I was like, oh.
You should have said, yes, yes, yes.
Yes, she will. Yes, I did. Yes. Mm-hmm. All right. Now, I would love to know who are your influences?
Well, starting off, Harold Nix, because if anybody doesn't know about him, he's a musician, but also an artist, and Google him. Herald, not Harold, it's Harold, Nix. And there's videos, YouTube videos of him playing music and things like that. But he turned me on to, Matisse and the Group of Seven and David Milne and Picasso, etc., like that. And so we looked at a lot of art together.
Right.
And over the years, I've been influenced by, well, certainly, Warhol and Roy Lichtenstein a lot. Mm-hmm. But I think, but there's all sorts of Matisse, really incredibly. So another one of my favorites is Raoul Dufy, who he was treated as a kind of lightweight. He did paintings of in France. He was a contemporary of Matisse. Paintings in France of beach scenes and dinners and stuff like that. But what I loved about him was I came across this story. He was standing on the beach one time, and there was a little girl over a little distance away in a red dress, and he's just looking at her, and she was standing still, and then all of a sudden she ran off to the left, and he noticed something. The red stayed. The sensation of red stayed, and he got this whole idea of the misregistration of line and color. When you look at his paintings, he put a slab of color down, and then the drawing of whatever the story is scrawls across those things. And he was doing this 40 years before Warhol, doing misregistration of color and line. So I'm another one of those people that I so admire. And anyway, I'd have to say there's tons and tons of them over the years. Mm-hmm. Agnes Martin. Now I'm really been looking at Marie Lanou, who's from Saskatoon. Oh. And she did a show at the at the Contemporary Calgary. Mm. And they're kind of not big paintings, but there's almost like a blank center with a kind of slight framing device. They're in a solid frame, and then you move in. There's slight framing device that's been a bit blurred, and then you come into the center, and they're just And I had this experience standing in front of one of hers where I just looked, and all of a sudden that stuff went away, and there was only my awareness that was in this. That's what I was aware of, was my awareness as I'm looking at this. And it was just like, wow.
Ooh.
Really, really good.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So
That's a whole new level for me. Just give me a second
yeah.
for that.
And it wasn't, no thoughts, no words, no meaning, right? It was transcended meaning. So that was great. And anyway, there's tons of.
That's a zinger, Chris.
Yeah.
All that exists was the awareness of the.
Harold Nix is another one. He's been going to the same spot on the shoe shop for hundreds and hundreds of times, painting the same thing, and not one painting is the same. They're done differently. They're different colors, different. Everything changes, but he's been hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of paintings.
Wow.
So yeah.
That's also a beautiful thought.
Yeah. And there's lots of in town now. There's Mark Mullen down at Paul Kuhn, and there was Brad Harms next door in New Zones, and right now there's
Try not to.
Kent Merriman.
Don't touch your mic.
Don't touch the mic. Yeah.
You're like.
Yeah. Kent Merriman at Trepagny Bear. Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah. And there was a beautiful show.
And your show.
Yeah, and there was a beautiful show by a friend that I went to art college with, Paul de Groot, at Herringer Kiss.
Oh.
Yeah. So there's great stuff around. I'm always thinking in the now. So it's like in Barb Milne at Vivian Mayer and Vivian's Gallery. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there's tons of stuff. Yeah.
That's very true. That's very true. But the influences, and for me the mentors have changed throughout the years. But I keep them. I string them along. I bring them.
They maintain.
And then they maintain.
Yeah.
And then there's a new one that opens up, and you go.
Yes. Yeah.
And now I'm going to read everything by that person.
Yeah.
And then I become obsessed. Again, people say don't say the word obsession. No, I'm saying the word obsession. Obsessed.
Yeah.
And totally overwhelmed and excited and also turned on, and that hot spot that you reach for, that you get to, and then you get to explode yourself.
Yeah.
And go crazy.
Yeah.
And people say, don't say crazy. I am crazy.
Yeah.
And I think the first time I heard the word, like that crazy, like when Ginsberg would say, crazy wild. and I would love that. And there's no way. I tried to find other words that worked, that replaced crazy. But crazy is crazy.
Yeah.
And there's only one crazy.
Yeah.
So I still decided I'm reclaiming the word crazy, and it doesn't mean nuts. It means wild.
Wild. Yeah.
And we can change the meaning because the meaning of words changes all the time.
Yeah.
So I can still use crazy.
Sure. Yes.
And I'm going to.
Yeah.
Because I've had discussions with other writers. What do you use instead of that word crazy? Because I love the word crazy, and now everybody has said it's a foul word. And I'm like, it's not foul. It can be reimagined.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean crazy. It means crazy. Throwing yourself into.
Yeah.
Or being taken by, or being guided by, or whatever the heck is happening.
Yeah. Well, I'd have to say another one of my favorite artists is Cézanne.
Oh.
Because what Cézanne did is he isn't painting to describe. A painting is brushstrokes like that. And what he does is he makes the viewer fill up the other half. And because they have to put the whole thing together in that way, they complete the painting. They're engaged. I mean, you could see some sort of high realism paintings that Oh, very nice, very nicely done. But it's if the painter, viewer, or the artist makes the viewer do half the work, then bingo.
Yeah,
You know.
that's a really good one. And what do you mean by that? Not to describe.
Not well. It's not detailed.
Right.
It's not right. So it's like. Yeah, it's not detailed. It's just, you know, and Cézanne is just, you go and look at it. There's just slabs of color, a paint, and if you get closer, it just there are more slabs like that, and you're the one who puts it together. You're the one who sees the scene, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's in fact just some flat or colored muck on a flat surface.
True.
Yeah.
Cézanne is
Yeah.
mentionable.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Or
yeah.
unmentionable.
One of my
Wow.
favorites. And the Liechtenstein, I remember seeing a Liechtenstein one
yeah.
time. It was his painting of the back side of a canvas. So, you know, it's like a canvas turned over and there's the crossbars and shadows. And that's all there like that. And so it looked like a cartoon. It had the illusion because of the shadow, but it did something else. Hanging on that white wall, all of a sudden I noticed that the whole white wall turned into a cartoon. So he changed my perception. And the white wall way up there there was no dots, but it was still pulled into that experience.
It's like the imagination which extends out of the brain.
Yeah.
So there is no frame. There is no frame. There is no skull.
Yes. Yeah.
And so when your brain is allowed, or you allow your imagination to extend beyond the skull
Yeah.
or the frame, then you get into the territory.
Yes. Yeah. One time I went to back after I was in art college. I was reading electric meters and water meters, and one time I went to a house in Bowness, and I went in. I had the key, and I went in. There was this old guy who was there, and he was a kind of folk artist, and some other, got to meet him and talk to him and look at his paintings, all over the place, and then I took a friend with me to meet him, and we sat around and talked with him for a couple of hours, and then when we left, the whole world looked like his paintings. So it transformed my way of seeing for a short time after. It was like an amazing kind of thing.
You've spoken a few times about the time dimension continuum. So, the red, and also like that. I called that purple city. When you see something,
Yeah.
When I was young,
Yeah.
I came up with this purple city because I would get high. And I would go to that funeral home on 17th Avenue.
Uh-huh.
And I would stare into the purple light.
Huh.
And I would stare and stare. And then I would look up into the world, and I would walk down 17th Avenue, and everything would remain purple.
Purple, uh-huh.
For a long time.
Yeah.
And it turned into Purple City.
Huh.
And so I always called that Purple City when I would look into something and I would actually see into it. So the third eye would see into it far enough
Yeah.
that it would continue
Right.
that vision for quite
some time,
for
yeah,
me
yeah.
called Purple City.
Purple City, yeah. That's good.
It was
Yeah.
the imagination has so many possibilities.
Yeah.
And as an artist, being able to work with
Yeah.
those possibilities,
Yeah.
of taking someone into your work so that when they see the painting, something else happens.
Yeah.
And that has happened with me and your gold piece,
Uh-huh.
which I'm harping on. I really love that gold piece because the gold piece has, for me, there's something else happening that's taking me into another world.
Spatially.
Yeah, spatially.
Yeah, yeah.
And it is spatially,
Yeah.
dimensionally. And that piece is special for that reason. The piece I have in my office, which is that poem, that sometimes I'll be on Zoom and I'll be looking backwards, forwards,
Yeah.
into your piece, and I can go into the windows of it. And so it's because it's got windows. It's like one of those mirrors that's facing the other mirror, and it's and I get that in that piece.
Yeah.
So you, in talking about it, I know that you've been talking about it, and I will say that you actually do it in your own work. And so and you maybe not intentionally, but that is the dimension.
Yeah.
The dimensions
Of that, yeah.
the dimensions of the mind and the dimensions of the imagination. And I think I'll call this talk the dimensions of the imagination. Because that seems where we have organically gone.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you think that's good?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah.
What are you working on now?
I have some just commission portraits. I'm doing a few portraits for friends like that, their kids, like that. So it's just some of the round ones with the lines, like that. Yeah.
Oh, that's super fun.
Yeah, and I just finished one of for the do you know the rabbits. The rabbits, the bar.
Okay.
The bar that was there.
Yeah.
And usually they had a round portrait of Michael Green.
Yeah.
And one of Richard.
Yeah.
I've done one of David Reimer.
Oh.
So, who just passed away a little while, a couple of months ago. So.
Oh.
Yeah.
They should commission you to do one of Peter as well.
Peter.
Our friend Peter. The handshake.
Oh, Peter. Yeah. Well, I've already done. I did several of him.
Okay.
Yeah, for his kids and like that. Yeah. Peter Boyd. Yes.
Peter Boyd.
Yeah. Where's the check?
That was kind of an in-joke, and you can go and check it out. That painting is a fantastic painting because it's like a meta painting. It's a meta painting within a meta painting.
Yeah.
If I have a meta painting, that's a painting.
Yeah.
It's huge.
It's huge. Well, it's 6 by 8 feet, I think, and it was. I had this idea, and Peter was living in Toronto, and he was a collector, and he wanted one of my paintings. There wasn't anything available, so I had this idea, and he said, "Okay, let's do it." So I had to take all the necessary photographs to paint a realist painting, and he and I are in suits in front of a red curtains. And he's passing me a check for the commission of the painting. Yeah, like that. And we're both smiling at the viewer, like that. Bruce McCullough wrote in my catalog from the National Gallery, he said that was one of the most important paintings he's ever experienced, because it really was like it was a joke that comedians wished they had thought of. Yeah.
It is funny.
Yeah.
And it's a meta within a meta's meta.
Yeah.
And so it's there's so many things happening within that one vortex.
Yeah.
And because of the size of the piece, it wouldn't have worked so well for me if it wasn't smaller.
Yeah.
But the size of it.
Full-size figures.
Full-size figures, and the money and what that means.
Yeah.
And the smile, and also the availability and the possibilities.
Uh-huh.
It's just a beautiful
Oh,
piece.
thanks.
It's one of those gems
Yeah.
that, and so, you're in the National Gallery. You've won all these awards, and your intention probably was different than that. What was your intention when you began?
Oh, just to do what I want. Like my father suggested. Just that, that I always liked, I've done work, I've done commissions where it's more like a job. But when I'm playing, I'm doing what I want, and stuff sometimes doesn't work out, or it's, goes this way or that, but I'm always doing what I want.
That's exactly, I do the same.
Yeah.
And also because I just feel like I'm getting away with it.
Right, yeah.
And
Well, I even treat commissions like doing what I want, because there's that whole thing of a habit, that if you have a habit that you don't like, you'll repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. So change the nature of the habit to being something you like, and you can still do it. It's a matter of my youngest son, who's now in his mid-40s. When he was 3 years old, he drank lye. It was in a pop bottle, and his brother was making hydrogen out of lye and tinfoil, and he saw this pop bottle, drank it, and burned his esophagus, had to have it replaced by a chunk of his gut. Anyway, years and years later, and he was, probably in his early 40s, and he told me he'd been depressed his whole life, and he went to a therapist, a trauma therapist in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and it was 2 sessions, 2-hour-and-a-half sessions, one on a Tuesday and one on a Friday. And I phoned him the next day after the first one, and he said, "It's a fucking miracle. His depression popped like a bubble." And then the same thing happened on the Friday session, where it was about the trauma for the gut. So what it had to do with was that if you have a traumatic experience, it gets stored in your body, and then you identify with it. This is now you. You protect it. So it's that thing of survival plays an important thing, and so that's not you, but you think it's you. And this,
yeah,
bang, gone. Yeah.
Wow.
And he said, "Life is like a golden river of light."
Life is like a golden river of light, and it is.
Yeah.
Thank you to Chris Cran. I'm going to cry because that was such a beautiful thing to say.
Thank you.
That was beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you. How is he now?
Good. I mean, he's still there's issues and stuff, they come up with, but all that other stuff is gone that he was living with.
Wow.
So he's, he had a big business in Oakland where he was making giant benches out of giant redwood that are, these trees that have been lying in the forest for 200 years, they don't rot.
Yeah.
So he was making these for Google Campus and for YouTube and stuff like that. So he wound up buying a farm, or kind of a farm, 27 acres up east of Sacramento.
Wow.
And he's got stuff still going through ups and downs as far as financially and all that stuff is concerned, but he makes it happen, so yeah.
It can happen like that, where you're instantly shifted.
Yeah.
And it's not instantly healed, but you're instantly shifted.
Shifted, yeah.
That's a beautiful thing. Or
Yeah.
slowly, I sort of feel,
Yeah.
because I do this Blavatsky work now, and I have for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like reading her aloud has completely reordered my atoms. Again, I mean, I've been reordered a few times, but definitely her thinking has entered my being.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same sort of thing, only it's more slow-mo.
Yeah.
But I have noticed these massive shifts in my life since I started reading her. And I started reading her because I gave my book to a major editor in Toronto, and he was like, I love your book, but no one's going to publish this shit, man. It's like, it is 600 pages long, and it is poetry. And it's like, I don't even know what you're thinking. And he was like, no one's going to publish this. But a small publisher, get a great cover, do a great blurb, and that's where it's going to live, and it probably will be some kind of cult thing. Because it's really great writing.
Yeah.
It's just not the norm of what is being done.
Yeah.
And nor will it be for a while. However, come and join the Blavatsky group. It's an international group, and we'd love to invite you.
Oh, well, thank you.
I said, sure. And it turns out that a lot of the writing I'd already done, because I'd worked on it for already 5 years, it is utterly aligned with some of her ideas. And so, utterly, down to the NAUT and the study of what that means and what the study of zero is and the study of zero. And so it's really been an interesting time because it's someone that can guide my present thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And that's unbelievable. And it's a sense of healing, the Golden River. I mean, golden light, a river of golden light. That's pretty poetic.
Yeah. Well, I think I gave you one of his books years ago. He wrote poetry.
No.
Maybe not. I thought I did.
No. I
Anyway,
would remember.
It was published. He when he moved down to the States, he went to J.B. Blunk, who was was a well-known American artist, sculptor, living in the coast in California, and Michael went there as a resident. At a residency, he was there for like 6 weeks or something. Wrote poetry and stuff like that.
Oh.
And J.B. Blunk, yeah. Anyway, a famous artist came, and he made a little sculpture. Michael made a little sculpture wood thing, and this famous, I'm blanking on names. This famous American artist talked to his dealers and wanted them to represent J.B. Blunk.
Oh.
So, and they agreed. They're big Blum and Poe, and then he went to the family's home, and he's looking around at all of the stuff, and he saw this sculpture, and he said, "That's the best sculpture your father made." And that's not my father. That was Michael Cran, who did that.
Wow.
So, which is pretty cool. So yeah.
Wow. Well, I would love to
I'll
read
get you
this
the
book.
book. I'll get you the book. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be nice.
I've got several copies. So yeah.
All right. And then did I give you my book?
What's that?
My new book?
Sure. No.
I'll give you one of those.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I also want to give you one too, Ryan. All right.
Thank you very much, Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan. I think
Yeah.
we're done.
Beautiful. That was
Yeah.
fantastic, you guys.
That was amazing.
Yeah, so much great.
Oh my God, I started crying.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
Later, agitator. In a while, bibliophile.